Hey guys, Sean Terry here, flip2freedom.com. Hope you are doing well. Now, in this video, I am going to share with you why I quit wholesaling houses. Now, it's not what you think. This is 2 times in my career that I literally quit wholesaling. And I can tell you, thank God that I have not actually quit, and I'm still doing the business and going out there, crushing it and running a team. There are 2 times that I quit wholesaling. One time was fairly recent in the first time. So I'm going to tell you the quick little stories behind it right here. And I hopefully you can take a little bit away from it because wholesaling, I've been doing this for 20 years and there's 2 major times, and you will run into situations in your life. You'll run into situations as you're doing the business that you will just be like, there is no hope. And you'll contemplate quitting. And I want you to come back and watch this video before you actually quit. And I want you to come back and watch this. So if you want to go out there and crush it wholesaling houses, if you want to go out there and make big checks, 10, 20, 30, $40,000, and you want to make some big profits, then if you could do me a favor, click the like button down there, click the subscribe button so you don't miss any awesome videos that we have coming out on wholesaling houses. So here's the thing. I quit twice in my career. And the first time was right actually when I first got started. And I learned how to wholesale houses from a guy in Texas. This was 2003. And I bought his course on how to knock on pre-foreclosure doors. And I got the course. And I remember it was at my house. I was all excited and the box came and I opened it up. This is 2003. And there was VHS tapes. Now, if you know what those are, you've probably never seen it before, but I had these VHS tapes and I had a VHS player, right? And I put the VHS in, TV came up scratchy, right? And there was this guy in front of like a whiteboard, like a little, like whiteboard paper there. He had these bell-bottom pants on. He had this Texas Southern drawl, which I love. I actually dated a girl in high school that was from Texas, had that Texas Southern drawl. So anyways, he had these bell-bottom jeans, big old hat on, Texas Southern drawl, and he filmed this course in 1991. 1991, 92. And it was 2003. He recorded it 10 years earlier. Now, I remember I looked at it, I was like, man, is this information even relevant? And I don't know what the story was. This guy was on the radio, talked about how you could make some money flipping houses. I, fell for hook, line, and sinker. I bought the course for $500. I didn't have any money at the time. I literally borrowed my wife's Capital One credit card. She had $250 on it. I had a Capital One credit card for $250. And this is when I'm 33 years old. And I paid for this course $200, and I got this thing, and I got these VHS tapes and this little manual that I had inside there, and it basically taught to knock on pre-foreclosure doors. So I found a list, and I started knocking on doors. I literally got a list. I mapped it out on MapQuest. If you know what that is, an old mapping service. I logged on to AOL, right? We didn't have like Wi-Fi. I had to log in and over the telephone. I had to pull my maps, and I went out there and I started knocking on pre-foreclosure doors. There was no GPS, no cell phones that had maps on them and stuff like that. This is a long time ago, 2003. And what happened is the first door that I knocked on, I remember I went up to the house, actually I parked around the corner because I drove by the house like 2 or 3 times, kind of casing the house to see if anybody was there. And I parked around the corner because I was just so nervous. I never walked up and knocked on someone's door before, that was in foreclosure. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I parked my car around the corner. And I remember I take my little clipboard and I walk over, and he had a truck that was parked, this guy, and it wasn't parked in the driveway. It was parked like in the front yard. And the front yard was all dirt. So he didn't park in the driveway. He parked in the front yard. And I kind of walked around his truck, walked up to the house, and there's this big, kind of screen that's kind of coming off the door. And I knocked on the screen. It was kind of dark behind the screen. And it went, kind of knocked on it. And I kind of stood back, and I have my clipboard like this, and I'm sitting there. I'm gonna say, hey, hi there, Mr. Seller. I'd like to help you before your house goes to auction on so-and-so date. So that's what I wanted to say. Never did this before, right? So I knock on the door, and this guy comes in behind the screen, because I just had the screen between us. And it was dark, and it was this like huge shadow of a guy, probably 6'5", 6'6", head shaved, had a tank top on, hair all sticking out of the tank top. He opens the door and he looks mad as a wet hornet, just mad. Opens the door and he goes, "What do you want?" And I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, what? So I was like, what the? And I jumped back, right? And I, wanted to say my statement, but I couldn't get the words out. I was like, I was like, a house or foreclosure. And I couldn't say it. And he's looking at me, goes, "What do you want?" And I remember I turned around and hightailed it back to my car. Now, I was 33 at the time, prior U.S. Marine. I wasn't really successful. I did sales before and stuff. I can tell you, I was shaken to my core. I got back in my car after like speed walking back to my car, sat in the car, closed the door, and I sat there and I laid back in my car. And this was May of 2003. And I'm going, I cannot do this. I don't have what it takes. What am I thinking? Who do I think? I cannot do this. I got to knock on all these doors and talk to all these people that try to get a deal. And I don't even know that I didn't have the whole idea about this whole concept of wholesaling. I know when I first got started, I talked to my father-in-law, and he's like, "You can't do this. You can't sell a house you don't own." I was like, "You can't?" I didn't know that. But obviously you can, because I've been doing it for 20 years. And he goes, I talked to my friend. He's in our Kiwanis group. He's in real estate. He's been doing real estate forever. Talk to him. So I called up his real estate friend and I had a conversation with him. And I said, "Hey, here's what I want to do. Here's the concept. I want to find a distressed house. I want to get it under contract, and I want to turn around and sell it, to another investor, a cash buyer that can turn around and buy the property. I can make a spread in between." And he goes, "Yeah, you definitely can do that. They're called wholesalers. They all across the valley here." And he goes, "But the problem is that you're not going to be able to do that, because the professionals get all those properties. Amateurs are trying to come in and find, they're not going to be able to get those. The professionals all get those. So the chances you actually getting a deal below market in Phoenix, Arizona, Maricopa County, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of time and energy, but you're not going to be able to make it work." So this was all going around in my head. The doubt about myself, was I capable of doing it? Could I do it? And then all this negative outside, forces. And my wife is like, "Hey, you got a deal yet? You working on it yet?" And I'm like, no, right? So I got in my car, I'm leaning back, and I quit. I'm like, you know what? I cannot do this. I don't have what it takes. I can't even imagine knocking on all these doors and trying to find deals. I can't do it. And I sat there and I'm like, I just can't. So I turned on my car. I was getting ready to walk out. I threw down the list and the clipboard and the stuff. I was like, I just can't, no. And I went, and when I turned on the car, I had they had a cassette tapes. They don't have streaming in, back then. So that cassette tape was in there, and it was Think and Grow Rich. This book right here. I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, you got to read it. It's by Napoleon Hill. Well, there's a section in there where he talks about, or actually he's talking about in the book about never, ever, ever quitting. And there's a section where he does a quote from Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill says, "Never, ever, 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 ever emphasize ever, ever quit." And he's talking about never quitting. And I remember listening to that, and I started thinking, I'm like, well, what if I don't do this? I'm going to go back to selling pools and landscaping. I'm going to go back to the, what I've been doing. What if I don't? What if I just give up and don't do this? And what I looked at is the pain of continue doing what I've been doing versus the pain of knocking on doors and attempting, to do this business. So right then and there, I went from quitting to being just a resolve that no matter what, I am going to make this work. I don't care if I have to get up early. I don't care if I have to work weekends. I don't care if I have to knock on every single door until my knuckles are bloody. I am going to find a way to do this. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to figure out how I can get this done. And guess what I did? I went out, I went to the next door, and I knocked on the next door, and I went and knocked on the next door, and I figured out and guess what? And when they said no, I went and knocked on the next door, and guess what? A dog chased me back to my car. I went and knocked on the next door, and the guy held the gun, basically said, get out of here, pull the gun away. I went and knocked on the next door, and I went get knocked on the next door, and no one was there and showed. I went knocking. I kept on knocking on doors until I found someone that said yes. And I set an appointment with him. I went back, and he to the appointment. I said, "Hey, I'll be back at like 6, 7 o'clock at night." That's when he got off work. I went back at that time. He didn't show. I went back to the house again. Went back to the house and knocked again. Went back to the same house, and for about 4 or 5 times going back to the house after he said yes, and then he didn't show. I went back over and over and over again. Finally, I caught him in the morning. Early. I got up early, went over there and caught him getting in his car, driving to work. And he said, "Yes, I will be tonight." I said, okay. I didn't have a contract. I didn't know what to write. I didn't have cash buyers. I didn't have Zillow or Redfin or any of these things to pull comparable sales. I didn't even know how to, figure out comps. But I went over there and I went to actually Staples, like an Office Max type of Staples. And I went and got a contract. I bought a real estate contract at Staples. And I took that contract and I wrote out the address and some information. I went over to the house, and it was like 6, 7 o'clock at night. It was all dark here in Phoenix. And I went over there and he let me in. The place was all dark. There was dust everywhere. The back, he took me out to the backyard to see the pool. The pool was drained and empty. There's really, and I was like, man, hair was standing on the back of my neck. I was like, oh geez, what am I doing here? But I got the contract signed for $86,000. He wanted to be done with it. I didn't have any cash buyers. I didn't even know if it was a good price. I signed it. I had I was like broke, had no cash in my name. And I went and I found a cash buyer in the newspaper. There was this guy that was advertising these houses, a guy named Chad. And I called him up. And I had Chad and said, "Hey, I see you're advertising other houses for like lease option. Are you looking for any more houses to buy?" And he goes, "Absolutely." I said, "Great." I met him over to the house. He went and looked at it. We went to a McDonald's down the street, and he agreed to buy the property for $98,000. So I got a contract from him for $98,000, and I got a contract with $86,000. $98,000, $96,000 from the seller. I took it to Barb Bass, which is at Metro Title here in Phoenix way back when. She's long gone retired. And we did our first deal. I made $11,008 on my very first transaction. And I can tell you that changed everything for me. That changed everything for me because now I have proof of concept. Now my father-in-law that said you can't do it because you can't sell properties you don't own. The realtor, friend that he referred me to said that there's no way professionals will do it. The doubt in my head thinking, oh my gosh, am I ever going to make it happen? Can I ever, do this? That was eliminated. All the outside forces that were stopping me, really, when I got my first check, everything completely changed. Now, if I would have quit, well, first off, I wouldn't be doing this video today, but holy cow, I can't even imagine. Now, the second time I considered quitting was literally in 2019. Now, that's not that long ago. And, I had, Flip to Freedom. I have other apartments and I have other stuff, businesses that generates revenue and stuff like that. So, I was like, at the time I was, primarily doing deals in our local market in Phoenix, and we were doing Google AdWords, direct mail, we were like omnipresent marketing. We were like everywhere marketing. Cost per lead, it got so competitive. Cost per lead drove up to about $550 cost per lead to actually bring a lead in. And leads per deal, right? To get a deal, we're talking KPIs, leads per deal was about 1 in, 18 to 1 in 20. So the cost to actually get a transaction was high. And then if you put all the operating costs in the office and everything like that, it became a business where the profit margins used to be great, 30, 40, 50% profit margins, where then they razor down to under 10% profit margin. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I got the sales guys out there making more than I am. I said, what is going on here? Really trying to figure out what we can do to be profitable. Well, at that point, I'm sitting there, I'm beating my head against the wall in the summer of 2019 going, what the heck am I going to do? How do we get leads cheaper? I had a cold calling, 13 cold callers are out there cold calling. We did massive amounts of texting. We did ringless voicemail. We send, 30, 40, 50,000 mailers a month. I had Google AdWords going on, Bing going on, bringing on different leads. We were literally doing every marketing channel except TV and radio. In fact, we have billboards on the side of the road, everything. Cost per lead averaged $550. The numbers do not work with those conversion numbers and an operation with the payroll that we had and stuff like that. Those numbers don't work. What happens is it just compresses your margins way, way, way down. To some months, if you don't hit it, you're actually negative, and then other months you do good and you come back, but it compresses those down. I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? And I couldn't see the solution. I couldn't see the solution. So whenever I find myself in a tough situation, whenever I find myself backed up against a wall, whenever I find myself with no hope on what to do next, the number one thing I do is I pray. I pray, I ask God for guidance. I'm like, guide me, open the way, tell me what to do. And you know what? He told me what to do. And I was like, we're going national. We are going national. So I set up Google AdWords campaigns. I know how to do Google AdWords, stopped all the marketing, changed everything. We changed CRMs. We went national. And we said, we're doing everything over the phone. And we made literally an immediate pivot in October of 2019. Pivot. Now, during that time of not knowing, right? I literally almost quit the business because I was like, stop. I could do other things with my time and energy and make way more profit than it is doing this. And then, I'd have to stop teaching, because I can't teach and not do. Right now, my real estate, that's where the majority of my income comes from. This teaching stuff is a hobby, right? The mastermind we do and everything like that, that's a hobby. Yes, it generates great revenue, but nothing like the real estate side of the business. The bottom line is that I can't teach if I'm not doing deals every single day. I mean, we closed 2 deals today. We closed over 100,000 revenue this week alone. And I can't imagine teaching and not doing the business. There are some people that do. I can't imagine it though. So the bottom line is that in October, we decided to pivot. We're going to go national. And at the time when I went national, between October and November, the majority of my team quit. They quit. Just except a couple core people, three core people stayed with me. The rest of my entire team quit. So I started from scratch in December and January of 2020. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't know COVID was coming around the corner. And remember, we went virtual. So that means we did everything over the phone. We didn't have to go to people's houses. We didn't have to go in houses. We did marketing all over the entire country. Had this pandemic, right? So there's distress there and people wanted to sell their houses. So January came along. We signed 20 contracts in January. No, actually, my mistake, not 20, 40 contracts in January. 40 contracts in January, and we closed one deal, and that deal is $3,500 in January, right, of 2020. 2020, that February came along. Guess what? We signed some more deals. We closed a little bit more deals. We started to take the baby, started closing deals. March came along, and the whole entire world shut down because of the pandemic. The bottom line is that right then, I mean, holy cow, it took me about a week to figure out how we were going to operate. Everyone went virtual, right? This minute team I had, a couple people went virtual we had, but we coalesced together and we went out there and we hired people, right? I hired Josh, my COO, during literally the week that the country shut down. I hired him. He got started up and going. We started hiring some more people. And all the people that quit, guess who they called back when the country shut down in March? They called me back. And they said, hey, could we have our job back? And guess what I said? Forget about it. The bottom line is that we built a brand new team, right? These guys are awesome, crushing it. And now we're killing it, right? And we pivoted with the current market situation right now. We're doing millions of dollars in revenue. And it's all because of changing and adapting to the market. Now, this whole thing with the market right now, cash buyers have exited and the market's shifted, the market's coming down. This is a great opportunity for real estate wholesalers, for you and I, right? Back then, it's not, it's harder to do business when the market's going parabolic because the sellers have options. Right now, in this current market that we're in, this is a great opportunity to be a real estate wholesaler. We pivoted back in 2021 to actually 2021. We pivoted and started teaching my whole team to do listings, to sell properties to retail buyers, to realize that cash buyers are eventually going to go away. Then June hit, we were prepared, ready to go. All the properties we have now are listed on the MLS. We can take conventional offers on the property. And we have right now, currently, I don't know what, $600,000 in revenue closing in the next couple of weeks. So it's all via selling properties on the MLS to retail buyers. And yeah, we do find cash buyers here and there, but the bottom line is that we pivoted, made the change, and it's crushed. So here's the thing. Here's the moral of the whole story. Don't ever quit. Don't ever quit. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't care, if you lose hope or, you're discouraged or you don't think it can work for you. You have what it takes. I'm telling you, you have what it takes because I know me, right? I'm not the smartest guy. I didn't go to college. I'm a prior U.S. Marine. I'm not a business person. It took a long time for me to figure out business, KPIs and tracking and structure and all that type of stuff. It took a long time for me to figure that out. Right. And that's why we do education. So I can compress that timeline of your learning and you can go out there and crush it faster than I ever did. The bottom line is you can do this. You have what it takes. You cannot tell me that, oh, I can't do this because And here's the thing, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you've come from. It matters where you're going. You can start with where you are right now. You can start talking to sellers. You can get going on a part-time basis around your job and move forward. But I can tell you, this is the best business that you can be in. It's amazing. You have the freedom to do what you want with who you want, when you want. I have never missed one of my, I have two daughters, a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old. My 19-year-old goes to college in Nashville. My older daughter is a nurse at a great company, an alternative cancer clinic. She does incredible, loves it. But I have never missed an event with those kids. It could be dance practice. We did dance competitions all weekend. We travel around the country doing dance competitions, flying out to Belmont. I'm flying out in a couple of weeks out to Belmont to see my daughter do a show out in North Carolina that she's doing. But the bottom line is I've never missed it. And the only reason why is because I control my time, and it's because I did not quit. If I would have quit, I wouldn't have been able to do that type of stuff, right? I'd have to be at a job. My daughter played, varsity tennis. And we'd show up, tennis matches would be at 3:30, after school. We'd show up at 3:00. I'd go to Chick-fil-A, get a bunch of chicken, and some Gatorades, and come down there for all the girls. And, we'd be there 3:00 in the afternoon watching my daughter play tennis. Why, I'm the only dad there. All the other dads are working. So the bottom line is this business gives you the freedom. I've been taking the whole month of July off since 2006. I bought a beach house in Dana Point, California for $1.2 million. And we've been going to the beach house every single summer. I sold it recently right before the pandemic, actually. And because of California. Things are changed around. My wife's sister lived there full time. She used to work at Disney. Disney got crazy, so she left. So whole thing's, going on there. So we sold the property out there. The bottom line is that market's shifting. There's going to be an opportunity to come back and take that money and buy a house in Florida, which is much better. All right. So the bottom line is don't ever, ever, ever quit. Stick with it. Whatever it takes, there's always roller coasters up and down. There will be tough times, but just stick with it. And you'll be amazed that once you get on the other side and you understand how this business works, you'll go out there and crush it. So do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Don't miss the videos because listen, all these videos we talk about is exactly how to do the business. And let me give you just one tip and then we'll wrap it up, is that it's all about leads and people. If you know how to generate leads, then you have a team of people that can process those leads. The problem is you can be a solopreneur and there's only a certain amount of leads you can generate, and you can make $150,000, $250,000 a year as a solopreneur doing deals yourself. Or you can build it to scale and do millions and millions of dollars, and that takes leads and people. And that's what we talk about on this channel. That's what we talk about, and how to go out there and crush it, and how to basically, with the leads, convert those into contracts and work with your team to make that go out and happen. So hope this video helped. Don't ever, ever, ever quit. Go out there and crush it. And I'll see you in the next video. God bless.